Hi people, so my name is Ruo Ni, I'm your MCVP PM. Today I will be hosting this space to talk a little bit about team building and also talent onboarding, okay? So in this space, we are going to know a little bit about, be reminded again about the talent onboarding checklist, the 10 days onboarding checklist. What's more important, we will go through again, refresh a little bit about what do we understand about team-centered element, especially in building phase. And then I will show you also how to connect team stages with team standards. So if you know, like there's one management theory that talk about different team development stages. So I'm going to brief you through as well. So what's more important for you to take note in this space is that I'm not going to talk everything like in this 10 to 15 minutes. So what's more important is for you to remember, click into the output link, and to make sure that you go through all the resources that I give you. And if you want to know more about it, definitely click into it and read through it, okay? Okay, so the first thing to talk about definitely is like why team building and talent onboarding is important. So then what is team standards? So why is it so important to have team standards being implemented? So team standards is a set of minimum guidelines, okay? Minimum set of minimum guidelines to support team leaders in engaging and also facilitating a team experience, okay? So the keyword here is engaging and facilitating. So why team building and talent onboarding is important? Because it's to build a foundation and system of communication to the team, okay? Of the team and to the team. So basically it's just laying a foundation. And if you know, when you are talking about team management, most of the time, 70%, like I think 80% to 90% of the time, in my experience is that everything is started off with communicating. It might sound very easy, everyone wants to learn communication skills, but until the end, it's the most important elements in team management perspective, okay? So that's why having a system of communication of the team in the building phase is very important, because eventually it's whatever that you're laying off, it will be the foundation of the team, okay? So imagine that if you are building a building, okay, like for example, if you want to build a skyscraper, what you need to do the most, what people focusing a lot, especially if you are a civic engineering, the first thing to start off is to have a very strong foundation. So it's the same for team building, because team building is meant to be a foundation for a team, okay? So if you look into Tuckman's stages of team development, which in short, we usually call it as the team stages, there are different stages. So there are 5 main stages of team. So if you look at the stages of group development, is that it's separated into different axes, okay? So one of the axes would be mainly talking about your relationship between group members, and another one would be task functions, okay? So the ideal part of it, so every stages would be like a step, or staircase, okay? So stages 1 would be at the bottom, stages 2, stages 3, 4, and 5. So the first one is forming, the second one is storming, the third one is norming, the fourth one is performing, and moving on next, you would have adjourning, okay? So the thing about these team stages is that when you move across stages to stages, you would eventually, the group effectiveness would increase over time, okay? So the thing about, there's one foundational theory about these team stages is that you can't skip through stages when you are having a team experience. So for example, it's not possible for you to say that, okay, I want to have a performing team, for example, because eventually that's our end objective, to achieve our organizational goal through collective efforts. So you can't say that, okay, right now I'm in forming stage, I have a bunch of people and I want to directly go into performing stage. That's not possible. So the thing that you have to do is to go through all the stages, okay, that you have to go through. So the thing about why we have to do team standards, or we have to do certain things, so that first it creates an environment for you to move quickly to a performing team. Second thing is to minimize the damage that you have throughout the time that when you are undergoing like different team stages, okay? Okay. So if you look at team building and talent onboarding, the first thing that definitely it reflected in at stage 1, which is you are considered as an immature group and you are at forming stages rules. So if you look at the elements there, it's very tiny. So then how is it going to be related to onboarding, right? So if you look at the definition of onboarding, so onboarding is the action or process of integrating a new employee into an organization. So right now is your MRD peak. So the things to highlight here is the process of integrating a new member into an organization, which is your team or either as general. So that's generally your building phase. And what's more important is that after initial onboarding is complete, most of the time, we will need to continue with training and development opportunities. So that's generally your practical learning spaces and also your reviews. Okay, so that would be your performing phase. So if you look into those elements and if you compare it with team stages, what you will see of stages 1 of immature group, when you are at forming stages, what are the things that you have to do as team leaders? So it's very easy. So the task for team leaders to do for stage 1 is to make sure that you establish, first one is to establish base level expectation. Second thing is to identify similarities. And the third one is to agreeing on common goals. So with all these 3 things that have been done, what are the common behaviors of the team members is that they will try to, they will either start trying or making contact and bonding, and they would start developing trust, and the relationship of your members would be quite dependent on each other because they are very new, they are not sure about things, and that's the time when forming is happen, they will be very dependent on each other. So if you compare it with the elements of building, when we are talking about establishing base level expectations, is that it closely related to transition, core competence, and functional skills. So when we are talking about transition, it's mainly about it's just a process of you to transfer either what your understandings, knowledge, and behaviors from one place to another place. Okay, it can be from previous team, and it can be from layers to layers. So that's why transition and core competence and functional skills are important, because in these touch points is when you establish certain set of expectation in that role itself, especially for team leaders role. Like different profile of members, especially if you have a current members profile and a newbies, you can't wait until your newbies are here and you start to do team building together with them, because they are at different level of understanding and knowledge. So what's more important is to make sure that you can calibrate the differences. So it's the best that if you are doing team building, you do it at different time with different people. Okay? You further look into the list of elements that needs to happen. So other than setting the basic expectations about like what are the functions doing, what is their roles, JDs. So another thing that definitely needs to happen is team rules. So it has to be decided in a team basis. So it's basically ground rules that everyone agree upon. So it can be related to behaviors, and it can be related to like some communication rules that you have. So for example, your team rules can be everyone needs to be very punctual, to team meetings or any events that in LCs. So that would be your team rules, or another way of calling it would be your team principles. So the next thing to take note about is definitely your individual plan. So when we are talking about individual plan here, definitely one of the elements that you would always remember is your PDP, okay? So the first thing to remember is about your PDP, and second thing, never forget about it, is also your initial LDA. So because no matter how, like when you are doing your first PDP, you should already have the information about this person's first initial LDA. So remember with that, just take more initiative in ensuring that your members have filled it in and you have done your one-to-one with them. So just to make sure that they have their individual plan created. So with that aspects that you have, you are actually indirectly setting expectations with that. Okay, so all these expectations, you might not see it useful right now, but definitely it will be a lot more easier in later time when you're communicating with your team. So for example, when you're talking about for example, take just now that example as said, like setting team rules, okay? So if you're not communicating like what is the bottom line of the team, if no one is acting upon it, then it's not going to be effective when you are talking things over and over again, okay? And everyone have a very different sets of standards, including like every individual. So when you have a baseline or the bottom line for expectation, at least people know what to expect. Okay, that's the objective of setting expectation in the first place. So the second is to identify similarities. So similarities can be your team development goals. So a lot of people was asking like, what is team development goals? So it's not something very fancy or very hard to do. So it's just that as team leaders, when you identify like what's individually every members want to develop, and you look at your team goals, your team strategies, what you can provide to the team as a whole. So that can be your development plan. So for example, one of our team development goals can be you want to achieve this number of exchanges so that our people can develop in what area. Okay, so that can be as simple as that. That can be your team development goals. So what's more important is that you can identify the similarities between the team development goals and everyone's individual goals. So with that, if you bring that connection back to the team, it will be a very huge motivators for them to make sure that they achieve their team goals. Okay, so other than that, it will be identifying your team plan as well, especially when you come to a context where you have different sub-functions or functions. So for EBs, you have different functions, so it's actually important to identify the similarity in team plan, so in order to make sure that you can carry out your synergies, right? So for sub-functions, it's the same. So for example, for OGV, if you in OGV itself, you might have digital marketing as sub-functions, physical marketing as sub-functions, customer experience as sub-functions. So it's important to let everyone knows what other sub-functions plan in order to identify the similarities, and so people can know better on how to collaborate and synergize. Okay? And then the third one would be agreeing on common goals. So pretty simple. If people don't know what's your goal, when people are not agreeing to your common goals, it's very hard for you to strive to achieve the same goal. Okay? Okay, with that, your team purpose can be something created when you are more prepared, especially when after you understanding every functions, what's the purpose of them being in the team, or you can have after understanding what they have, what's their purpose in the team and in their roles, and then with that you connect it with your team goals and your team plan. So strategies, goals, and plan. So and the existing of the function themselves. So you can create a space with them, allow them to share their personal purpose related to that experience or that function specifically, and then you can create together a picture of success of the team on like why our team exists and why do you want to achieve, most importantly. So with a very clear ambition in your mind, what's your team goal, what do you want to achieve as a function, and then with that, connect all of it, okay, your members' individual purpose, the goals that you have, the ambitions that you have, and then connect it and create one statement that sums up like common purpose you have. So if you look it back, okay, so it will be very similar to the process that you have done with your MCVP. The important part of this space to happen, to enable this space to happen, is to make sure that you have a very clear identity until the end of the day. Okay, so that people would know who they are, what's their individual contribution to the team, and it's all linked back to the initial intention of why we are having building in the first place. Okay, so never underestimate the power of individual contribution, especially when people know about what they can do as a person in contributing to the ambitions that you have. People will go all out for it. So if you leave them confused, they are definitely not going to perform until the end of the day. And it's your responsibility to make sure that they are very clear with their own individual contribution, because that's how you give a clear picture to your people. Okay? So other than that, if you think that you are done with talent onboarding or team building, you are wrong. So if you are looking back into establishing base level expectations, it's not only going to be done in just stuck at your building phase. So what's more important is always remember your performing phase is always overlapping with your building phase. And with that, when we are talking about stage 1, when you have immature groups and when you are trying to form them together as a performing team, so that important elements to look into is definitely what team leaders need to do, the task for team leaders to be done in performing phase. So establish base level expectation is the same elements that if you can see for building phase. So the difference of it would be the elements of it. So when we are talking about establish base level expectation, is to make sure that you have set team routines with your team. So your team would know when to expect to have a team meetings, when they do expect to have a working space, or when do they expect to have a one-to-one with their direct team leaders. So establishing team routines is very important, because if they don't know about their routine, most probably they are not going to commit to it. Okay, so the second thing would be performance tracking, is also to establish your accountability system in the team. So if you wonder what is accountability system, don't worry, it's just like how you track your performance. So it definitely, one of it can be your PDP tool, okay, because that's how you put down all your members' personal development goal, right? So your PDP plan there. So that's one of the accountability system. Second one of it would be your PA tool, okay? So your PA tracker, your commitment tracker, that would be it. And also, if you are team leaders yourself, then another accountability system would be your team standards tracker, okay? And also your LC tracker, definitely. So moving on next to the next element, we identify similarities. So when we're talking about identifying similarities, definitely the thing that you have to do, if you recall like what I have said previously, most of the time I was talking about one-to-one. So support system is definitely one of the elements that you have to check to ensure that you can do it through individual or team spaces to make sure that you can identify similarities in every people that under your lead. Okay, and then when we're talking about agreeing on common goals, it can the elements that to focus definitely would be reviews and feedback. So reviews can be something when we're talking about reviews here, is including weekly reviews, monthly reviews, and also your quarter reviews. So definitely focus on your weekly reviews right now at this period of time. So remember to always review on your common goals, okay? And to make sure that in every reviews, especially the team meetings that you have, you keep reminding them about the common goals that you have, okay? And another space that you have definitely is feedback space, okay? So that would be how it looks like when we are connecting team stages and also your team standards elements to be checked, okay? So one thing that I won't forget is your 10 days onboarding checklist. So this is how generally it should look like for your members' experience from day 1 to day 10, okay? So remember why onboarding is important, because especially for newbies also, is to make sure that when they are very excited and at the moment when they are being recruited, you have to keep that excitement in them, okay? And if you miss a day of engaging with them, their excitement will be like dropping all along the time that when they are not engaged. So keep them busy. I think keep them engaged and busy would be one of the best way to make sure that they are committed, okay? That definitely provided that in the first place you are recruiting the right people in your team, okay? So if you still have any concerns, or if you still have any clarification that you need, I think definitely go for looking more into the resources that I have here for you. So it can be, if you want to know more about how team standards and team stages are related to each other, you can click into the link, refer to Blue Code for more details on more step-to-step guidance on how to deliver every team standards elements. And there's one talent onboarding slide that explain more in details about like how talent onboardings look like, and also remind there are refreshment for hosting spaces and also conduct effective meetings for the team. So just to make sure that you start engaging your current members, okay? Because if you realize for current members, they are very they are not getting any engagement since the time that you are busy with your own selection and election process. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me a message or you can approach your team leaders, your PM, VPs, or your LCPs to ask more about it. And then that's all for today's space. So have fun in checking out all the resources, okay? Bye!